Hi guys, how are you today? Hopefully you're good. I'm recording this ahead of time, so right now I am probably at home recovering from surgery. So keep your fingers crossed that everything goes okay. I miss you guys. Well, I will next week. So we're going to do some notes today to recap from our lab that we did last week, where we looked at a whole bunch of things and had to decide together as a group if they were living or not living, and then we had to make a big list of what characteristics we think living things have to have. So what we're going to do today is we're going to take down our notes for our notebook of those characteristics that all living things have to have. All right, so what you're going to need for today is a paper like this, all right, and you're going to need your pencil case. So if you have not gotten those things yet, if the sub or Mrs. Young, if you guys want to pause this and they can go get their stuff. If you have your stuff already, then I'm going to show you what this is going to look like in your notebook when all is said and done. All right, so we're going to cut these out in what we like to call tabs. Okay, so these flip open. So it's really easy. What you do is you just cut out each box. Okay. Cut out each box, and then the little area above the box you're going to fold down, and you can either tape or glue that down so it's like a little tab here. All right, does everybody see that? Okay, mine's in color, but you are more than welcome to add color to yours. As we went over last week, effective color is always really good for helping you remember things, and it helps with your notebook grade. All right, so go ahead and do that, get that all set up. The order doesn't really matter. It's just wherever you put them on the paper, we will go through each one and you can write it out as you see it, okay? So now that you have that all set up, what we're going to do is we're going to go through each of the tabs, and I'm going to put on the screen what you should have written underneath the tab, and we'll talk a little bit about what that might be like, okay? So the first category, or the first characteristic I should say, of all living things is that they must have cells. So you're going to look for this box, this picture that has a picture of cells on it. Okay, so let's take a look here. All right. So what you're going to write underneath is what I did is I put the big name of that characteristic on the notebook page itself and then all the notes underneath, but you can do this however you want. All right, so the characteristic of life that we're talking about here is that all living things are made of cells. They have to have cells. Some living things like bacteria are what we call unicellular, meaning they only have one cell. So uni refers to the word one. Okay? Multicellular things have to have more than one cell, and those would be all things like plants and animals. Basically, anything you can see with the naked eye is multicellular, except for there are a few exceptions, things like chicken egg. Chicken egg is actually only one cell, believe it or not. All right, but most things are multicellular that you can see with the naked eye. Okay, so that's our first characteristic. All living things must be made of cells. And if you look in a microscope, what you would see, if you did a plant dissection, for example, you'd see a picture like the one on this slide. Or what you basically are going to see are little circles everywhere, and those are organized little units. That's what cells are. Okay, so you guys can pause and turn this back on when you're ready for the next one. All right, the next one is going to be metabolism. Okay, so that's this little picture here, and it's got a sun and a plant, and it says sunlight, and the sunlight is helping that plant take in, well, when it takes in CO2, it's going to help the plant grow, and then it's going to release oxygen. All right, so this characteristic is called metabolism. Now, we've heard the word metabolism before. A lot of times people would say, oh, I have a fast or a slow metabolism. All right, what metabolism actually is all of the processes that go on in your body all combined, okay? And living organisms all have to have the ability to take energy, to use energy, and to do something with it that helps them live. All right, whether it's repairing, moving, growing, those are all life processes that energy is required for. This is why if you were to starve a plant of sunlight or of water, it could not make the energy that it needs to survive, and then it would not grow, it would not be able to repair any damage. All right. And for us, if we don't eat, or if we're, stranded on a deserted island somewhere, all right, we don't have food or water, okay, this is where we get into trouble, because we can't make that energy that we need to repair or grow or even move if it gets too bad. All right, so go ahead and fill that one out. Let's look at the next characteristic. This is homeostasis. This is a really fun one. If you, we might be able to do a lab with this when I come back. All right, homeostasis is the ability to maintain internal stability or balance. So think about it like your inner zen. All right, so if you can maintain stable or internal environmental conditions, you have achieved homeostasis. Homeo means like level or the same. Stasis refers to, like, you can think of like the status of something. All right, so it's the same status. An example of this, let's take a look at this picture. This guy here sweating. All right, he's out in the sun, it is hot, and what is his body starting to feel? Okay, he's getting really warm. Your body temperature is one of those things that needs to stay balanced. If you get too hot, you have a fever. If you get too cold, you can be hypothermic, and those are not good situations. So what your body does is it tries to compensate for that excess heat or cold, and in this example, in the excess heat, and it's going to respond. Now, what are some things you do when you are really warm? All right, I know some of you are thinking the answer. I'd call on you if I could. All right, you would be sweating. Your body, you might notice your heart is going a little faster. That's because of the excess heat. All right, sweat is an example of your body trying to cool you down. It's trying to bring that high temperature back down to where it should be. Okay, if you sweat, you're using something called evaporative cooling, where the moisture on your skin, when the air comes in contact with it, it brings the temperature down a little bit. So we hate sweating, right? But it's actually helping to cool us down. All right. And we all know that if you go and you sweat playing basketball and then you go outside and it's winter and it's cold out, you feel a lot colder because you have that wet sweat on you. Okay. Now your body has to do this with all sorts of things. If you're cold on the flip side, what do? You shiver. Okay. That's your muscles creating heat. You get goosebumps. All right, those are things your body does to respond to this change. All right, so all living things have to be able to maintain internal stability or homeostasis. And like I said, hopefully we will get to play around with this next week when I come back. All right, let's look at the next one. All living things respond to stimuli. So what I want you guys to do is we're going to pause the video in a second. Whoever is in charge, you're going to turn the lights off. You're going to work with the person that you're sitting next to, and you're going to very carefully, okay, don't blind anybody. Some people have never done this. If you've seen this, then that's not anything new for you. But what you're going to do is you're going to work with your partner really quickly, and you're going to take your phone and you're going to turn your flashlight on. All right, so you're going to get your flashlight out. If you don't have your phone, you can borrow somebody else's for this. All right, you're going to turn your flashlight on and you're going to shine it in your partner's eye carefully. Don't look directly at the light. You're going to kind of like look straight ahead, and your partner's going to come in from the side here like this, and the partner is going to watch what happens to your pupil. Now, don't ruin the surprise if you already know what happens to the pupil. All right, so then once you do that, I want you to flip and the next person, like, switch places. The person who shined the flashlight before, now the other person is going to shine the flashlight in your eyes. Okay? So go ahead and do that. You can pause this and come on back when you're done. All right, so hopefully you got to see what happens with the person's eye. All right, And what you notice was what's demonstrated in this picture here on your notes. The pupil changes size. Okay, now the pupil is the area, the dark circle of the eye, the black circle, that allows light to come in. And if that's really open, all the light's going to come in. If it's really closed, you're not as much light's going to come in. Okay, now if you go outside on a bright sunny day, or if you shine a flashlight in your eye, you're not going to want all that light, because what happens is you kind of get like a whitewash and your brain can't discern what it's looking at. So what you would do is your pupils get smaller to allow less light in, so your brain can still see details and shapes. Okay, so this is an example of how living things have to be able to respond to stimuli, and stimuli would be any physical or chemical change in their internal or in their external environment. So this example was an external environment. Reflexes are an example of that. When you go to the doctor and they hit you on the knee, that's your patellar reflex. You kick a little bit, all right, that's you responding to stimuli. But you also respond to internal changes. Let's say you drink a lot of water, all right, your electrolyte levels are going to fluctuate, and what you're going to have to do is pull some of that water out of your blood and put it into your bladder, and then you have to pee. All right, that's your body responding to stimuli. Okay, all living things do that. Think about a plant. This is a challenge question. When I come back, I want to hear the answer. All right, how do plants respond to changes? Think about sunlight. What do plants do? If you know, go ahead and discuss. All right, okay, let's look at the next one. Living things have to grow and develop. This is pretty straightforward. All living things grow, meaning they increase in size, and they develop, meaning they process, or it's the process of becoming a mature adult. Think of when you were little and you learned about the butterfly life cycle, how it turns into the chrysalis and then the adult, all right, all that stuff. Living things can't just stay stagnant. They grow, they develop, and then unfortunately one day they die. All right, that's all part of being a living thing. All right, let's look at the next one, which is reproduce. All living things have to be able to reproduce. Now, this does not mean that if you don't reproduce, that you're not living. So, for example, let's say you have an aunt who never had kids. That doesn't mean she's not living, okay? That just means her population, her species, is able to reproduce. That's what it comes down to, okay? So reproducing means you produce new organisms like yourself, and you can do this one of two ways. Well, you can't. You can only do this one way, but certain organisms can decide which way to do this. Sexual reproduction is when you're going to take the genes from two parents. So for us, it's mom and dad, okay? We combine them to form what we would call a zygote. Sperm and egg make a zygote, all right? Bacteria, on the other hand, they only use what you see in this picture here. They start off as one bacteria and they just get bigger and split. All right, that is asexual reproduction, meaning there's no genetic variation there. And we'll talk more about that as we go through. But that is what we call asexual reproduction. It still counts. All right, some things like yeast can choose which one to do, depending on their conditions they're living in. All right, and now the last one, our Pokemon. Now, I made this last year, but I thought maybe you guys still might get it, all right? Guys, remember the Pokemon Go, how you had to go and capture all of them and they evolved and all that stuff? So evolving is the last characteristic of life. All living things have to evolve over time. Not necessarily one person. This is referring more to a species in general, all right? Genes in a population change over time. So for humans, we went from having a shorter stature, we've grown, our skin color has changed over many years, our brain size has changed, we've evolved a ton, all right? Okay, so those are the main characteristics of life. So I will leave you guys here. If you need to rewind, you go ahead and do so. And if you have any questions, feel free to email me. All right, thanks a lot, guys. See you soon.